They are,
Yeah,
but
well, they have a job to do too. It's called cutting.
all right,
and,
we have a little bit of
being
this going
responsible.
on, and maybe we could talk about how they can solve their problems, and we'll do that right after this break. Back on Focus on Connecticut, talking with two leaders from the House of Representatives. Let me reintroduce them to you. They are Speaker of the House, Jim Aman, Democrat from the 118th District, and Deputy Republican Leader-at-Large, Dolly Powers, from the 151st District. So we have the mayors and the first selectman saying, so what do we do now? And their choices are cut somewhere or raise taxes. And they already have taxes at the top. They're saying, how much more can we do? You know, the cities are dying because of this. So what do they do? Do you change the property tax? We've been talking about this for so many years in the legislature. Is this the year to do it? I'll start with you, Mr.
Well, Tom, in all due respect to the mayors, they have a responsibility to have a balanced budget. You know, you don't see Dolly Powers or Speaker Aman running to Washington because of all the money we've lost from the federal government, which is quite a huge sum over the last decade or so. You see us crying to Senator Dodd or Lieberman or Rosa DeLauro or Shays. You don't see us doing that. You know why? Because we understand they have a job to do and we have a job to do. If we get less money, that means we have to live within our budget. Whether we like it or not, we don't like cuts. We know that we need to make investments to make our state better, which, by the way, hopefully we can talk about some of the good news that's happening in Connecticut. But they just don't want to be the bad guys. They don't want to be the ones that have to lay people off. Well, you know what? That's what leadership's about. The governor has the guts to say, you've given me the rescission power, 3 to 5%. I'm going to start doing it today. That's what she has to do. You know, all of us back home, and right now people are hurting all over the state of Connecticut, but they have to be reasonable, so they're going to make choices. You know, that Cadillac that they were thinking of buying maybe a few months ago, and it still looks pretty in the window, but when they look in the pockets, they know they can't afford it, they don't buy it. Well, it's exactly what we need to do now in this economy. We don't know if it's going to turn around quickly, so it is time to batten down the hatches and understand that it's going to be a little bit of a rough ride for all of us in the state. But you don't see us in the legislature blaming the federal government, though we've received less and less dollars every year, and we've been able to manage the best way we could. The mayors have to do the same, as tough as that is. And I know it's difficult, but they're going to have to live within their means right now until the economy gets better.
No changes in the way the state is handling the tax issues?
Well, as you said, we've talked about it for years and years and years and never reached a consensus. There are a lot of us leaving the legislature. Maybe the new folks who come in can solve that problem.
I think one of the things and I think what we always need to do is tell the people back home that you're going to pay for something no matter what. Right. The issue is, can we make what we have better? And the answer is yes. I still believe the best way we can do it that's equal across the board is to take the burden of special ed off of the local towns with accountability. That doesn't mean if we take that burden off that the mayors somehow steal the money and to go to other pots. Yeah. I'm taking a huge mandate which costs every town millions of dollars, but by doing that we now need to figure out a revenue source, as we've done with transportation, and make sure it's a permanent and we live up to that permanency, and we don't abandon it like we've done with casino money with Pilot, lottery money to education, ECS money is at 50%. That's the biggest problem I think that the constituents have with us, is that we tell them we're going to do these things and we're doing these things to pay for this, and after a couple of years we just wipe that out and forget about it.
You mentioned, let's talk about some of the good things. Well, let's talk about some of the things you did, and you can tell me whether they're good or not, the actions you took. And, of course, the budget was an action. And you've already mentioned the criminal justice legislation, which not only is tougher on criminals, but also provides money to the justice system to see that it is run in a better way.
Exactly. And it adds manpower in parole and probation, which is where we need it. It puts money into housing. Halfway houses and those kinds of, and treatment centers, puts money into housing for sexual offenders, so we know where they are, puts money into electronic tracking of various kinds, not just ankle bracelets. But so what we were trying to do was not just say Judicial Department and Department of Corrections, go do this. We said, no, we're going to do this, we're going to fund it, and we're going to specifically tell you where to put that money, which I think is a much more workable kind of a solution than just go fix it.
But these decisions were made given feedback from various parties.
Oh,
so
yeah. We had
they're asking for
huge
this
working
help.
groups going and all that kind of
The
stuff.
guys, the men and women on the front line that were, that we supposed to listen to, the experts, and I think their advice was good. The last meeting I had with the prosecutors and judicial and the defense attorneys, I looked them in the eye. I said, if we give you the $10 million, will we see major results? And they said, absolutely, yes, Mr. Speaker. These are the tools we need for what you want, or the General Assembly wants us to do. So if we don't listen to that, then again, the only blame has to go back on the legislature and the governor. And then if there's another tragedy, we'll be back, trying to figure out a way to solve it again. But they've told us, invest in these things, in these areas, you will see major results.
We're seeing many tragedies these days in the home ownership area, the mortgage crisis. When we come back, let's talk about what the legislature did this week in that regard. One last break. We'll be back in a moment. Might be the cause of it. We're back. Just a few minutes left on Focus on Connecticut. But we're lucky because these two guests will be coming back next week and we can go through some more of the issues that you addressed. This one, though, mortgage relief. The nation is hurting. Connecticut is hurting among the worst in the nation. And this area is among the worst in Connecticut. So everyone is looking to someone for leadership and guidance on this. You've passed legislation now that will provide some mortgage aid relief. Is it a drop in the bucket?
I hope not. I hope it's not a drop in the bucket. But I think we need to stay on top of it. It does have programs in there, and I think we need to very carefully oversee how they're handling this money, because we're allowing them to bond, and that's huge. So there were a number of folks in my caucus who had a concern about the state through these programs becoming a banker and holding bad mortgages and that kind of stuff. So my hope is that it's not, one, it's not a drop in the bucket, two, it works, and three, without making it so cumbersome people can't use it well, that we have very strong oversight as to how this money is flowing.
I think that it was a great attempt for the legislature to try to give some relief out there. It's a good bill. I think it's better than a drop in the bucket. Maybe it's a quarter glass full. But certainly little state of Connecticut isn't going to be resolving this national problem we have. So, the federal government, we need the leadership from the federal government, which we are getting from our legislatures. Our congressmen and our senators are all over this issue too. But I have to commend the Banks Committee and the chairs for doing a wonderful job. And we were a little nervous here time-wise the last couple of days that we weren't going to get this bill through. But I'm very pleased that this was one of the major pieces of legislation we did this year, and hopefully we'll have some positive results.
Another one, the minimum wage bill. It'll be going up over the next few years. Your caucus?
I think we mostly voted no on it, just because we were very concerned about where we are economically and how long this is going to take. Because with the last recession, we kind of went in, we kind of sunk beneath the waves, and then it took us a while to reach the surface again. So that was the basic reason that most of my caucus voted no on it.
I was very concerned about it as an individual legislator, as a speaker. As a speaker, my caucus really felt that it was needed. I think, in my own personal opinion, it was probably the wrong year to do it. I think it's very difficult to try to increase revenues on businesses, or mandates on businesses, or increases in pay wages when the economy is slumping. But the bill passed. I'm glad they at least got the tip part in there for the restaurants because I thought the way it was written first was really unfair to them. But it passed.
Explain the tip part.
That was happening. They were also saying that the wages
in 15 seconds.
The wages of waiters and waitresses will also be the same as minimum wage. Well, we all know I used to own a restaurant. Bottom line is that's very unfair because of the tips on top of everything else. So there was a compromise to go back to a lower
wage for
Correct.
that.
Correct.